She said, I know myself. And if I had a credit card, I might, overspend or do things that I know are not good for me. So I choose not to have a credit card. Mm-hmm. And so I was like,
I know.
It was like proud father moment. Like, look at you standing up, standing on business.
Know yourself. And
yes.
I think so that was an inherent lesson for her over time. That was fruit, right?
Yes.
It was like, okay, if society says do this, she was able to distinguish, was that thing right for her?
Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young, and we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it. What's up, Matt?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good.
All right. I have not gotten enough sleep this week, and I think I'm starting to feel it. So we shall see how this day goes. I think by the time 3 o'clock comes, I'm going to need a latte.
You're going to need a nap.
You know what? If I could take a nap, if I could employ a nap, that would radically change my life. I have never been able to nap.
You should try it sometime.
I'm envious of your ability to nap.
All right, my body knows when it's tired and it needs to take a nap. It's like night-night.
And then my dog will, when he gets antsy from me taking a nap or trying to land still and not paying him attention, he want to be all up in my mix and sniffing my face.
That's why you don't take a nap near him.
Right. I do have to get literally back to the bed.
You go to an isolated nap location where he doesn't have access.
Yeah, well. So that's just a whole lot of work where you can actually get to literally fall asleep on the couch and be asleep for 2 hours.
I don't hate the player. Hate the game.
I do hate the game. Anyway.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, I did some content for a company, and we were talking about raising confident kids, like financially confident kids. And I thought about how we have this whole idea of while we're raising our kids, just meet them where they are, you know what I mean? Which is fine. But when I was done with that, I realized that there's this missing link. Like, we are not just raising the 3-year-old that is 3 right now, or the 10-year-old that's 10 right now, or the 15-year-old. We want to raise confident adults. We want to raise responsible adults who know how to handle money. And so while a 3-year-old cannot handle what a 22-year-old can handle in terms of financial literacy, understanding, education, all of that, we do need to be thinking about talking to our kids in age-appropriate ways so that eventually they can handle all of the things instead of pushing it down, and waiting until another time. I feel like we're not proactive overall in this area.
I think it's hard for parents to be thinking sometimes about a 3-year-old and the lessons that you have to give them. But I think as we were raising our kids, we were intentional about the lessons that we were trying to institute with them. And honestly, parenting is challenging in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because I go back and I think about when we had our first daughter and we were all excited, and people get pregnant and they're excited about the new possibilities. You have this new person. But once you leave the hospital and you get home, it's like, okay, what do we do?
Yes. You were like that, and I was like, how do I keep this thing alive?
Right. I was like, this baby didn't come with any instructions. And so you have to start figuring life out. You got to lean into your life lessons and things like that to start helping you learn how to parent. And each child is different.
Yes.
So there's no general rule of how this is how kids are.
Yeah.
But I think when we had kids, we were already on our debt journey, our getting out of debt journey. We had already completed the debt journey because we had a bunch of debt.
Right. We were good at accumulating the debt.
The debt journey was done, and we were on the getting out of debt journey.
Right.
And so I think about like the lessons that we were learning, we were starting to begin instituting things with our kids, and people would be like, "Really? You were doing things with your kids when they were little?" I think, I was like, we're all in this. You
got into it real good, and we'll get into that. So here's my question. I
was like, look, you part of this family, you in it too, little baby.
Do you feel like at the time when our kids were younger that you had a vision for what you wanted for them financially speaking? Do you feel like that was clear?
I mean, I think I always, me, I've always been a visionary. And I feel like that's one of the things that I've always done for our family was try to forecast that vision, and I would live it out and I would share with you. And I know sometimes I would think real big things that might not have been possible in that moment. But I think that's one of the gifts that God gave me was to have that clarity to see things down the road, even though the reality of it was different today. So I think on some level, I always had a vision for our life and our children's lives.
You always thought bigger than me. Like you always could see something I couldn't see. For me, the biggest thing that I wanted for my kids was no debt out of college.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how that was going to happen. I had no idea. I was just like...
And nobody does when you have like a little baby, you're not thinking like, well, man, how am I gonna have him get out of debt?
But but I think that we actually had a conversation about this because you remember we wrote up our goals as a couple and we put it on, we typed it up and put it on the sheet of paper,
like
made it look all good. It was so great. But one of the main things on there as a goal for our family was that our kids would not have debt coming out of college. And so having that vision, and you expanded that because I believe it was you who said if they get scholarships, you wanted to buy them a car, which eliminated another reason for them to have debt, right? So, but originally I was just thinking no student loan debt. And when we think about that, what that means is a couple things. If you sit back and say, well, what needs to happen in order for that to be a true case, then that meant we had to get out of debt. Right? So that we could free up money, so that we could save for college and or save for a car, right? We actually had to make room to create their reality. And we had to teach them so they didn't mess it up, right?
Right. So, I think we were always like really trying to be mindful and cognizant of how we could relate lessons to them at their point.
Right.
At their level, that is. And I think, when you think about raising financially, savvy kids that become financially savvy adults, it doesn't happen overnight. And recently we talked about like financial pillars that people need to put in place. And so we want to get into some of the pillars that are essential for literacy for kids. And I think the first thing you really have to do is help them start understanding what earning looks like and, the value of a dollar and things like that. And so we, as a family, instituted, like it's hard to institute chores when you have little kids, right?
Right.
And people say, well, how do I get them to do things? I do it because I told you to. And I know as parents, you get frustrated because kids are kids. They don't always listen.
Let's just say every good parent has said, do it because I told you to,
right,
okay?
Well, why do I have to do it? Because I said so.
If you, listen, you ain't doing nothing if you haven't said, do it because I said so, okay?
Because I said so. But I think we were trying to help our kids, help our girls gain good habits. And so we had, I got into it. We had a chore chart that I made, and I created this whole concept. We called it the Pop Shop, and we had a chore board, and they were chores that were equivalent to their capable levels. And I think when we really started this, our kids were like 4 and 8, and we had, pick your toys up in your room, make up your bed, things that they were able to accomplish. And we had this board, and I had
You went, here's the top. And
I
you went over the top. And I let you own that Joker because you had all the vision for how to make this Joker work. I was like, this is wild what's going on here.
Some little hearts and Velcro so they could go and put it on the board when they completed their chore. And we had a whole little area you go to, and the board was there, and they had completed, boom. And we would basically, I would open up the shop every week, and they would get paid, and I would give them, and each chore had a value associated with it. And I would give them, like I was using poker chips then, I would give them, poker chips of value. And then I had stuff that they wanted to buy, and they could buy, like I had like little toys and gift cards, and they could turn those poker chips into cash. With this many chips equals this amount of cash, and they started learning some things because they knew that, oh, I want to get that thing, buy that, and they would have to wait the next week and do chores and earn and save. So they learned not only how to work and save, but they learned delayed gratification because they couldn't get it in that moment, and it was something that just really worked for us. And it started to breed habits in them that we wanted to see. I know you thought I was crazy, but
you know what? It was so good because honestly, our kids still remember it.
Yes.
And
as adults.
And you are, you're a person who might lecture. And so this was a good way to avoid the lecture. Like this was an experiential learning.
There's nothing like, a good lectern. Just lecturing, and here's an opportunity for me to expand your knowledge base.
Oh, why we change the voice, babe? Like you got all intellectual over here. You are good for that. Sit somebody down and explain all the things and get into all the details. And this did not require that. They learned work and reward. And it became fun, and they were looking forward to what am I going to get and how much am I going to save? And the piece that I got excited about was we created these boxes that each of them said give, save, spend. And they decorated.
And they each had a set.
Yeah, they each had 3 boxes, and they decorated them, made them all cute so that they could physically see they're going to put money in each one of them. So when they did earn money or they turned it into money, they would put it...
Or they got birthday money or whatever.
They would put it in one of these boxes, a certain amount. And we never gave them, forced them to do a certain amount in each one or whatever. But we wanted them to see that it's important to do all 3.
Well, we did tell them, be a good tither, put your 10% in your give.
But I think that's the other part of it is them owning, how much they can put into saving and what are they saving for. Typically, they was just saving for a whole nother toy.
All right.
They were
saving for that trip to Toys R Us.
But I think it was so cool to see when they had saved up enough money to actually go to the store and buy something of their own that was like $15. That's a big deal for a young kid.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to show them that this was a good idea, working, produce something good. And we didn't do everything all perfect. Do you feel like there were anything when our kids were little and in our house, because they're no longer in our house.
Right.
Do you feel like there's anything you regret about how we taught them about money?
I think about that sometimes because, just like I have vision, or I can be a visionary. I'm very reflective too. Mm-hmm. I think back a lot and try and course correct. So when you ask me a question like that, I'm like, man, do I think I could have done something different? Absolutely. There's always something you could do differently. Or if I were to go back and comb through the past and how we did certain things, sure, you can always find something that you could have done better. But I feel like for our family and for our kids at the time that we were raising them and going through the experiences that we were, I feel like we did the best that we could.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, well, we did the best we could. And I go back to what I said a moment ago. There's no manual.
Yeah.
And so I think as parents or as people are listening to this and you have kids, you're like, well, I don't know what to do. You know, I didn't have these experiences growing up. I didn't have this knowledge base growing up. And neither did we. Mm-hmm. And so I would just compel people to know that knowledge is out there, you know, and that's why we do the podcast to share insights because, you know, though we didn't grow up with extensive knowledge about money and finance, we've accumulated it over the years and we've imparted it to our kids. And I think to that question, is there something different? I stop and I look at the fruit is always the judge of what you did, whether it was good or it was not. Mm-hmm. And so when I start to look at the fruit, I look at our kids and one is a spender and one is a saver.
Yes. So even though they grew up in the same house, these kids are very different with money.
Yes. But I have to say, the spender is a consummate budgeter.
She is.
Because she budgets to see how much she can spend.
It is hilarious. She will flip this budget and she has figured out how to make it her own and all the things. She is consistent with her long-term savings. She does have an emergency fund. But that girl, she wants she wants the nails, she wants the trip, she wants the hair, all of it.
I'm actually not mad at her because she has embraced it. She found we started her on the course. Then she was like, okay, that works, but let me find a tool that works better for me. And she went out and found her own budgeting tool and found her own electronic envelope. And she's like, I can't do this or I can't do that because she's thinking long term, I want to do this other thing or I want to do that. And so I
you applaud her.
I give you the golf clap. Like, good job.
Well, and you know what? Our other one, she is really more of a saver. She does not enjoy spending money. That is not her thing. She is not great at it.
She is like you. She is like, oh my God.
Yeah, it overwhelms her to spend over certain amounts. And she feels like she has so much more satisfaction having the money in a savings account or growing, honestly. Yeah. And so I love that too. But
then we teach her you got to balance life.
Yeah.
You know, life is to be lived and experienced, but you also, when you do the right things, the reward is to be able to do the things that you want to do and live how you want without debt or constraints or the stress that comes along with it. And so it's different life lessons for each of them.
Yeah, yeah. I think that my two things I can point out that might fall under regret or what would I encourage someone to somebody would do better than me, right? Which is be consistent, because even with the pop shop, there were some months that we forgot. The kids had to be like, when is the pop shop opening again? You know, and honestly, it took work, like to plan behind the scenes and to sneak behind their backs and make sure it was stuff in there.
Right, I had to go and make sure the pop shop was stopped.
And consistency in ensuring that they did, because the point was twofold to help. It was a money lesson, but it was also a responsibility for stuff in the house.
Yes.
And that doesn't have anything to do with money. It's simply don't lay around here like a sloth and do nothing. You've got to get to work, right? And so being consistent was one of those things that I would say. And even as they have gotten older, I would also say that being consistent, it takes actually more effort to be a financial mentor for them and to ensure that they're on track and to, like right now, it's the end of the year. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is just to help them go back and look at their investment accounts to see how far they've come. We do this every December so that they can get into the habit of encouraging themselves, right? Like look at what it was a year ago and we'll look at what it is now. Look and see the growth so that they can continue to be excited about that and
compound
stick
interest
with it.
Is something else.
Yes, that's a huge thing. So the consistency, I think, is a biggie. And then the other thing is our youngest specifically, both of them said this, but my youngest, she was like, Mom, I'm not going to go into the same kind of business as you. I'm not doing what you do. I'm not following in your footsteps. I don't like numbers that much. I'm not doing it. They both said it because our oldest is a little bit more artsy and, creative.
Yeah,
and our youngest is like, I'm not about to be helping people with their money.
Yeah, but they both are doing some things that are kind of offshoots of things that we do or we've done or they've seen.
Sure, but they specifically...
They're in their own lanes, though, for sure.
They are, but when they said that, it made me wonder as a parent, did I do too much talking about the budgeting or saying no or discouraging of debt, that kind of stuff, that it pushed them to a place where they're like, I don't want to do that. So that was a question. I'm just saying, for me, it was a question because I've been in this business for 20 years.
Yeah. But I even think back when they were little, and one of them got like a Barbie cash register or something, and it came with money and fake coins and fake money, and it had a credit card, and we were like, we don't mess with those, and we scratched out credit and wrote debit, and they were like, we do debit cards. And, it was just funny how we had that conversation. And then fast forward to today where, the Thanksgiving holiday recently passed. And, we were with our oldest and we were having dinner and some of her friends were there. And they were like, well, why doesn't Faith have a credit card? And she was like, these are the wrong people to start that conversation with.
Yeah.
And we got into this conversation with her and her friends, and she was standing her ground. Like, she said, I know myself. And if I had a credit card, I might, overspend or do things that I know are not good for me. So I choose not to have a credit card. And so I was like,
I know.
It was like proud father moment. Like, look at you standing up, standing on business.
Know yourself. And I think that was an inherent lesson for her over time. That was fruit, right?
Yes.
It was like, okay, if society says do this, she was able to distinguish, was that thing right for her? Because ultimately, what her kids, Lord, not that. What her friends were trying to say was, you need to build credit.
Like, come on, build credit. Join the rest of us.
They're not saying use a credit card. Right. They're saying build credit and maybe try and take advantage of the travel rewards or whatever that a credit card might offer. And the thing is that, sure, that might work for some who are disciplined in certain areas. Like,
but it's
honestly,
not for everyone.
Our youngest would do well probably with a credit card. That's the honest truth, because she's not a big spender. She doesn't overindulge.
Yes, she's not going to have that temptation to spend beyond her limits.
Exactly. And so you have to know yourself. And there are other ways to build credit. Like if you want to go off and get a mortgage, right? So the thing is they were well-meaning, but I appreciated that for her, she thought it through, and she did wrestle with how to stand up for herself.
Yes.
She really did. And she talked to us about that wrestle.
But I think that's part of her journey now.
Right.
That's part of her growth.
Yes.
And, we laid the foundation.
Yes.
And I think everything in life comes down to, if you have a solid foundation, whatever you build upon that will be on steady ground.
Right.
And if the foundation is shaky, then, you build a building and the walls start to collapse, you got cracks, you have things that aren't as they're supposed to be.
Right.
And I feel like we were that foundation. And I think about in our travels, we ran across, we were in line, I was getting Starbucks and I was behind this woman and her kids, and I saw the youngest, her child, she had $5 in her hand. And I was like, well, what is that? and they were like, what? I was like, what's that in your hand? And she said, money? I said, what is that? And they were like, huh? I was like, I'm just joking, because not a lot of people use cash. And, everybody wants to use credit. And I was saying how we're some of the few people, me and them, who were using cash. But I knew that she had instilled a lesson, as we talked a little bit, she had instilled a lesson in her daughter that, hey, you got $5, if you're going to Starbucks, that's your limit. And it's crazy to think that, kids now, you go to Starbucks, they buying $7, $8 drinks, but she had put in her daughter's mind, like, there's a limitation on what you can spend. And I was like, man, see, that's a lesson right there.
It is.
Just in that moment of how parents can begin to talk about the value of earning and the value of $1 and spending. Like, it's not infinite. Mm-hmm. We don't have a money tree that, you go shake and...
Don't we wish that the money was just everywhere?
The tree and, $5 bills or $100 bills are falling off the tree.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, you could just, it's unlimited. And so in that moment, I just appreciated that parent, I knew had some conversations with that child, and that child understood that there was a limitation.
And I think that nowadays, because we're such a cashless society, right? Like the airport specifically cashless, right? Or you'll go to certain events and they don't take cash. And I think that when we're trying to teach our kids these money lessons, it can be a big disconnect because it can
be challenging.
Money isn't being exchanged.
Yes.
You have to help them to connect the debit card, the checking account, the savings account with real money.
It's that intangible nature of how transactions occur.
Yeah, and so it does make it harder, which is why I really appreciate the Pop Shop, and why when other people have cash in hand, it's like whoa, you go into Starbucks and people, you can pay with an app. You can pay. It is wild how easy it is. We were just at dinner and we didn't even have to pull our card out. We were able to scan a code and split a bill with friends and pay ourselves without.
The waiter didn't have to bring a check.
With
it was
no wallet. These things make it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and the challenge with that is always that we'll typically spend more. We'll typically add the thing on. And that is a challenge in teaching kids. And so when I go back to the fact that we're raising adults, they might be 3, but at some point this child is going to be out on their own.
Yes.
Our big thing was, we do not want you living in our basement. I want to support you. If something goes down, we are here for you, all of that. If you need to come home and it's dire, come on home, baby.
Yeah.
But I do not want to raise a person who is unable to live on their own. And so when we're thinking about a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 15-year-old, think about what is it that they need to learn for that next level. So we were talking to our kids when they were 15 about college, and we freely...
we were talking about cars, like your first car.
Because our car story...
How you'll get it.
Our car story was good with our teenagers, because we basically said that whatever they match, whatever
level of car you want,
whatever they save,
we'll match your savings.
We will match it. And so our first one got what was it, a $3,600 car?
It's like $3,800 or something like that.
And then our second one, it was $5,600.
Yeah, she was like, well, she didn't have automatic windows and
but I also
Bluetooth.
Think it was 4 years later. I also think the cars are a little bit more expensive.
Her car was a little too entry level. I want a nicer car.
But we didn't spend a lot of money on their vehicles, and they went to work. They both had jobs. Yeah. They saved their money.
But I have to say that when I see parents buying these kids brand new cars at $15,000, $20,000, I'm like, hold on, they are going to hit something.
How many times did our daughter hit the house?
I'm not gonna put her out there like that.
I put her out there already.
But she had some challenges with parking in the garage in that situation. And I'm glad that I had an older vehicle for her to start out on.
Yeah.
And she has something to work towards, because we set the expectation that, look, you get a full ride to school, we're gonna buy you a car.
Right.
And now she graduated, we bought her a car, and we're with her, and she is zipping around in her car, rolling around, but she has no stress with that either.
No payments.
Right. But as you were talking, I thought about how, things don't always register. Because we were in Costco shopping a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago, and we, buying different stuff, and you see how much things are on the shelves, and I'm not keeping a rolling tab of stuff. And we got to the register, and, they rang all the stuff up, and I just bloop,
Yes.
just did, Apple Pay or tap, whatever. I was like, I didn't even see what the total was.
So we were in the car and I was like, yes, that was $196.
Right. And I was like, wait a minute. I didn't even check to see what the total was. It's like we needed the stuff, right? And we had, grocery money in our budget. But I had to stop and pause myself and be like, I can only imagine how people roll through Costco. Ooh, they see it and they just putting stuff in the cart. Mm-hmm. And I know everybody can't just tap, because if you have a very tight budget, you're going to be looking at it differently. But it made me just stop and realize, like, wow, how people could probably just go through and then get back and realize they overspent after the fact.
So it's so interesting too, because as you were saying that, I was thinking about, like, it was $196. And when I swipe, when I'm looking at that number and we're at the register, I'm like, what did we buy? And I had forgotten that we had the dog food, which is $30. And, it's...
Then you start to say, okay, we had this big item, or this extra,
up.
or that.
And so if you don't pay attention...
Yes.
And if frankly we were on a tighter budget, one of the things that you can do with kids is add it up, or have them use a calculator to add it up all along the way. These are all teaching moments. Right. And even for adults, like, to stay on track, sometimes you have to do that. I have done that. I have actually been at a grocery store and I was like, I'm putting that back. I'm not doing that.
Look, and you know me in grocery stores lately.
Yeah, I know. You it's so funny how at Costco you are freer, but at the grocery store you like, how much does that cost?
Like, hold on.
Wait a minute.
When did this become this price?
You're like, I don't want that.
Right. It is funny. I'm
like, but it was $5, but it's not worth it to you.
I'm like,
that's not worth it to you.
I'm associating value with every single thing at the grocery store. Like, that's not worth that amount. Put that back.
But that protein drink at Costco, like, you buying a whole case for $30. You like, gotta get that.
30 grams of protein per serve. Yeah, let me get that. But anywho, it's just interesting, like, just thinking about kids and raising financially, savvy adults. And there's many, many ways to do it. And our way isn't the only way. And the encouragement that we would give people is to find something that works for you and your family and do it. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, when I look at my kids and I think about, like, how they are planning for the future and, investing in, their Roth, and we told them we're going to give you the cheat codes, because there's a lot of gamer kids out there, and if you get the cheat codes, it makes any game easier. By the time you get to the big boss battle, you can win because you know how to do it. And the big boss battle to me is life.
What's the cheat code, babe?
It's like, start early, get the free money when you get a job.
The
with a
401k match.
In your 401k. It's, if you have the ability, start a Roth as early and as soon as possible, because you get tax deferred with your retirement savings in 401k and tax-free compounded interest with your Roth IRA investment. And you put those two together, you could have a very successful future when you're a young person who starts to do that.
And the other piece of the cheat code in that investing vehicle is simply to understand compound interest.
Yes.
And to never touch the money unless it's in a dire emergency, but just do not touch the money that is growing, because compound interest gets you to a place where you're earning interest on interest. Make your money work harder for you than you are working for it. And if we can teach our kids, get them to a place where they can understand that is huge. And so I feel like
our girls have bought into that, because they're seeing, like, our oldest is at her 401k, Roth 401k, and she's like, man, she sees how it's growing. She's been working for a few years, and our youngest is seeing it, starting a Roth, and she's like, oh, okay. And so I'm excited about how their journey will evolve and what they will be teaching their kids when they have kids. And so it's just an interesting thing. And so we hope that people just do that. But, what's going to be your make it worth it today?
My make it worth it is to be intentional. That word is probably something I say a whole lot. Be intentional. So we're not just in a 3-year-old's world or a 5-year-old's world or an 8-year-old's world. We want to ensure that we're giving them life lessons that they will be able to learn for that next season. They can use in that next season
Absolutely.
of life, right? And so our kids are able to take care of themselves now because we were intentional with the process. And your kids can handle a whole lot more. I think as a parent, we want to shield them from a lot of stuff, and we want them to feel like, you know what, they don't have to worry about money, and you don't ever want them to feel insecure that you can't take care of them. But I also think in the same regard, there is a way to let them know, like we let our kids know we were in debt, and that we were working to get out of debt, and we let them know when we missed it, like when we had regrets about something that we did, and
Right.
and
it's not a perfect journey.
and it's okay for them to know that. And so being intentional with helping them to learn along the way so that you can see that they are growing into a person who can take care of themselves and be responsible for their own financial household, that's huge. I mean, honestly, that is the proudest, because we just love money, right? We love to talk about it. We love to, get into it. Like it makes us really proud that our kids are now at a place where they're embracing sound financial habits that are going to take them far. So I just say be intentional.
And that's awesome. I think that's awesome. And I don't know how much more I would add to that, because only thing I'd say is just find what works for you and your family. And I think the financial lessons translate into so many other aspects of life. It's not just about money or, stuff or things. It's about, this builds character, in individuals. And sometimes that's what we need to really focus on, is the character behind it. Because when you create good work ethics and good habits around earning and how you do that, I think those will translate into more sound financial decisions that they will choose to make. And so that's where I say, we just find what works for you and keep doing it.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm hopeful that all of our listeners will be intentional as they figure out what works for their household in creating and building and investing in their kids' financial health for the future. So exciting.
Until next time.
We're out.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support, so be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.